Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. Today we'll be discussing the report on unidentified flying objects by Edward J. Ruppelt. The hassle over the word proof boils down to one question. What constitutes proof? Does a UFO have to land on the river entrance to the Pentagon, near the Joint Chiefs of Staff offices, or is it proof when a ground radar station detects a UFO, sends up a jet to intercept, the jet pilot sees it, locks on with his radar, only to have the UFO streak away? Is it proof when a jet pilot fires at a UFO and sticks to his story even under the threat of court-martial? Does this constitute proof? Today again, Dr. Bill, I know your favorite subject, Mr. Ruppelt. How are you today?
Hey, how you doing?
Is the T silent?
What's that? Ruppelt? I don't know. Ruppelt. I don't think it is. Ruppelt.
So we're going to talk about the book today, but before we get started, we had a couple comments on the YouTube channel. One was by, we aren't going to say last names, but from Aaron. Great show. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the simulation theory, which is along the lines that we're living in a simulation that was created by advanced humans or beings that figured out how to transfer consciousness to an avatar. And if you've heard about the documents released that say, according to the CIA, the world people live in is an energy hologram simulation and that astral projection is real. Got a comment on that, Bill? I mean, first of all, we're gonna do a show on. I mean, that brought up a great subject. We are going to do a show on that. I was reading into it, and I know you've heard of it. You've heard of most everything, Bill.
Yes, I know everything. Yeah, it's a interesting topic, and I think about, I don't know if it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I have the book sitting over here, and I got something on top of it. I can't.
Probably a UFO book is sitting on top of it.
No, yeah, I got enough of those. This is the singularity is near, and I'm going to grab it. So say something while I get up, just for a second.
Okay, well, the simulation theory is kind of like the Matrix, basically. I mean, it's, where the consciousness is put in other people, and it's can be controlled. So what you got? You got the book there about that?
Oh, yeah, I didn't remember this guy. The guy is Ray Kurzweil. He got a ton of press like 10 or 15 years ago, and his idea was that our computers will advance to the point where we can all upload ourselves into the computer, or the computer will become so smart that we're just irrelevant. And a lot of people, at least Silicon Valley peripheral or Silicon Valley types, were big into that 10 or 15 years ago, and they were like predicting that this was going to happen pretty soon, and it didn't, and then people sort of walked it back. And there's a lot of hype about AI, and who is it? Thiel and maybe even Musk talk about the threat of AI, and right. I don't know. It's the new AI stuff isn't conscious thinking, right. And it's not going to become conscious and thinking anytime soon. There was also in the 1980s, AI was really big, and they thought we were going to have thinking machines within 10 years, and there was a lot of money thrown into it. In fact, I knew somebody whose dad was a sort of pioneer AI researcher.
Oh, and
really? He ended up, I guess, leaving the university and became the accountant for a tribe because he was American Indian.
Oh.
And so he became the tribal accountant.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, it was a big deal. It's been a big deal. The new stuff does some really slick things, but the slickest things that I'm seeing, I actually have a AI thing on my computer where it does photo recognition, so you can put in like a bunch of photos and train it for recognizing stuff. That's pretty trivial. And a lot of the current AI stuff, not that I know anything about it, is just basically training, this program to recognize things and So when you show it something new, it recognizes the new thing as what it's been trained to recognize. I don't know. We'll see. We've so many things have been hyped uh, out of like Silicon Valley and stuff, and then nothing comes out of them. Comes out of it. So we'll see. And Silicon Valley is not cranking the cool products like they used to. I don't know what's going on over there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was for a while. It was just like everything was just exploding. I mean, I can remember signing up early for Google and the search engine. You put it in, you'd find all this really cool stuff, and you'd find the information that you're looking for. Now you got to wade through like 4 or 5 pages of ads before you can find what you're looking for. I don't know.
Nice.
So,
All right.
welcome to the future.
Now, the next one was from our the story of UFO Area 51 reverse engineer Bob Lazar. Very exciting episode.
Lazar.
Levi says, didn't he lie about working there? We don't know.
Yeah. So what Bob Lazar does have evidence about working at Area 51 or working through the subcontractor that does Area 51 stuff. Let me do this.
Is that EG&G?
I gotta clear my throat. Hang on, I gotta mute this.
So I think he worked for EG&G, and he had a pay stub to prove it.
Yeah, he had a pay stub. I think he even had a photo ID. I mean, but photo IDs can be like for a place like that can be faked. But there is definite evidence that Bob Lazar did work for the subcontractor for Area 51 briefly for a couple weeks at least until what it looks like it was until his background check fell apart. His security clearance didn't come through.
Yeah, that was. And then his wife was having an affair. So.
But he also knew that apparently he had a feeling because they stopped calling him and having him come in.
Yeah.
Because they were having him come in fairly regularly for 2 weeks, and then they stopped calling him, and that's a sure sign that something's wrong with your security clearance.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we talked about it in that episode. I think he did actually work there briefly, and he does have support for. He has support for that. Everything else, it's like with anything with UFOs, everything else is a question mark.
Yep. So those are from our YouTube channel. I want to thank everybody for listening. We're getting a lot of responses. Well, not really responses. We're getting a lot of activity on the new YouTube campaigns that we're running. So thanks a lot. Keep the comments coming. We will, good, bad, or indifferent. We'll read them. We want to improve our show. I just want to touch on. Before we get started, the Elizondo. Did you listen to the entire 3 hours of the UFO Garage episode? We're gonna give them a plug. They're a really good show.
Yeah, I listened to not all 3 hours, but I listened to an hour or so of the Elizondo stuff. I didn't follow much beyond that. So you know more than I do.
Sounds like he's their neighbor or something. Isn't that what you got out of that?
Yes. Yeah, he definitely, they live in the same street or block or something.
That's why I was a bit jealous, because I said, I'd like to have Elizondo. However, I listened to probably about 40 minutes of it. I listened in the car back and forth. And it was kind of odd that Elizondo really didn't give us anything other than the fact that he was at ATIC, right? Is that where he was?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, but he also had that TV show for 2 seasons on the History Channel called Unexplained.
I've probably seen it.
I watched them all.
Did he say he saw anything?
No. He just says that he worked for the agency and that he did see some things that he can't talk about. But I don't know. It's just we'll see. Oh, and which is fine. We'll see what happens. The this whole UAP stuff is interesting. I mean, they released that they're releasing that latest video, the crappy triangle video, which is like, come on,
It's
you know,
getting worse.
just
Yeah, the quality is not getting better. It's getting worse
it's
even
just
with our
garbage.
technology.
Yeah. Well, you know, Elon Musk did that tweet with the little chart with the camera resolution and the line of the sighting. The picture resolution doesn't change. And I looked into the camera resolutions are actually the digital camera resolution compared to photo camera resolution is lower than film. So that's not the best comparison because film had, I tried to look up some estimates on film resolution. Film camera, 35 millimeter was like 80 megapixels.
Right.
And I mean, now cameras are starting to reach that point. And I was running around, I've decided, one of the things I've decided to do, I got my little iPhone and it's got a decent camera in it. I've decided I'm going to try and take pictures of airplanes and stuff when I see them.
Oh yeah.
And I've managed to take one picture of one helicopter.
How'd it come
And
out?
I haven't seen any other airplanes, but the resolution, I mean, you're not going to get much from these handheld, these little cameras. I have a better camera that I've been playing with, and I'll try something with that. But photography of an aircraft, even an aircraft in the air, is a tough gig. And then, as I talked about before, there's the photo paradox, UFO. I call it the UFO photo paradox. If you
Right.
have a really good photo, it's fake. Everyone goes,
Yeah.
it's fake.
Yeah.
So you're stuck with this crappy photos acceptance level. So if it's a crappy photo, people go, "Ooh, I don't know what it could be." And if you have a
Yeah.
really good photo, it's fake. It's like the guy that was on the Italian guy and his wife were hiking on a glacier in the Italian Alps,
Yep.
and he had a great photograph of a UFO with a robot-looking person walking around it doing something, and
Yeah.
he got fired. You know,
Yeah.
he went to the paper, and the paper says, "Yeah, we'll publish your photos." And the paper published the photos and said they're fake. His boss fired him. The guy was like, "I wasn't able to find work for a year after that."
Yeah. It's
So
not like it is now. Where we would probably say the same thing. Yeah, that's not real.
yeah, I mean, it's a lose-lose situation. And when we get to it, there's the we won't get to it this week. We'll get to it next week. But there's the Boy Scout leader that had an encounter in Florida that has a chapter in the Ruppelt book that we're looking at right now.
Is that where they got
That's
burned?
got some,
Radiation burns.
yeah, that's got some interesting things. We'll talk about that, but
Where
we're not
they-
going to get to that today.
They said it was a giant bird in the Bluebook.
That was a different one.
Was that a
That was the
different
one
one?
with the wife, lady with the two kids.
Yes. Yes.
And this is a Boy Scout leader driving some Boy Scouts home, and he saw something in the woods, and we'll go over that in details.
Okay.
I actually like that one, and there's a couple interesting points that makes it a very X-File-ish type situation, but I'm not going to talk about it this week.
Yeah, let's not jump
Stay
ahead.
tuned, fan.
Stay tuned.
We'll talk about it next week. Did you watch the 60 Minutes episode?
Yes, I did watch the 60 Minutes episode, and I watched the extended version, as you suggested. I just still,
yeah.
still am not, I was the guy and all that, but, we really didn't get much other than, they had the two pilots, which was really good. That was a good interview, and they're very believable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the best part of that, is that the lieutenant, female lieutenant Dietrich, was finally came forward and showed her face, and it was interesting sort of watch the interaction between her and her wing commander.
Yeah.
Because when she was talking about this, she kept looking at him for like reassurance on what they were saying.
And he
So
did.
as far as this is one of the things that comes up in like in Ruppelt's book. And we should say that Ruppelt was the first Project Bluebook investigator. He ran the program. Before him, there was Project Grudge, which was a Lieutenant Cummings, I think. And then before that was Project Sign, which the Donald Kehoe books calls Project Saucer,
Yeah.
because the they couldn't use they couldn't use the true code name because it was classified. So the press called it Project Saucer, but it was Project Sign.
I remember when we were talking about that early on, and I said, "Why is this not matching anything that I'm reading?" We finally figured out that was the reason for that.
Yeah, it's the records. It's interesting because there's people that have. This is the thing that puzzles me about the whole UFO story. I'm gonna scoot forward and clear my throat. Hang on. So this has been going on for 70 years, a little more if you count 1947. And if something's sort of like a fad or whatever, what fad lasts for 70 years?
Yeah, I mean, are we gonna, as I on the run up, I discussed what's proof. Are we ever gonna put our hands on one of these things?
Well, I'm not sure we're going to get to it today, but the radiation chapter in this book
Yeah.
too has some interesting points. And one of the things that came out of this book is they talk about a meeting in this book where they were reviewing Project Bluebook, and that was the Roberts report. And
Yeah.
the Roberts report was tied in with the CIA. And there was a big, in that other book that I read on the CIA UFO papers, they spent years debating and people requesting, trying to get a full release of the Roberts report. And which I thought was really weird because it was like 5 years before they even released a partial report. And apparently there was a partial report in the Condon report on Project Bluebook that came out in 1969. But people have been requesting, doing Freedom of Information requests to get the full report. And a site online has what they said. They've compiled the full report. And of course, I don't have it here. Oh, here it is. Oh, it's interesting because they put their letters of their FOIA, FOIA, which is whatever, the Freedom of Information Act request. And at the end of the letter that they were requesting, because they'd put in these requests to the National Archives, they put in a request to the CIA. At the end of the letter, it goes, "In light of the extreme efforts that we have taken over the years to accommodate you with respect to your concerns, we feel it inappropriate to conduct yet another search on your behalf. Therefore, we are unable to assist you further and will not discuss this matter with you further." So they just told him to piss off.
Yeah, we're done.
We're done. Yeah, we're done. We're not going to help you anymore. And they did, apparently. So this has the Roberts report, which Ruppelt talks about. They had a meeting, and he doesn't name any names, and he changes some of the facts to confuse the issue. That was a review of the first Project Bluebook, which recommended that they continue with the program. So anyway,
I know they had.
So a lot of this stuff, huh?
Well, Grudge was the dark, with a chapter of the dark era where they were debunking every UFO sighting. The program was still going on, but it seemed like it was an effort to discredit all of the UFO sightings that were being reported, rather than with Bluebook, where they're actually doing now Ruppelt always did his due diligence, but there was a time when the government simply did not want any of this to come out. Really only recently, and I don't know how. It's almost like they're just, saying, yeah, we're now looking into UFO sightings by the pilots and things and investigating them. But really, they're not going to. What are they getting? They're getting nothing more than we've got back in the day when radar was new. And
yeah, it's like it's a repeating cycle.
Yeah, we're not getting anywhere. We're not getting anywhere. But go ahead.
Yeah, Project Grudge absolutely was not designed to, and designed to find proof, positive proof. It wasn't even impartial. It was designed to um, disprove, if anything, uh, the presence of UFOs. I'm looking for his.
Well, one of the other
His.
things that I ran across kind of weird as I read through his book is that they ran through 47 and there's no mention of the Roswell incident at all. Why that didn't was that not a thing to look into? I mean,
I don't know.
they didn't. I mean, if you read it, I know. I mean, did you find? I mean, you may not. I think differently sometimes, but it's like, well, why didn't they say anything about Roswell?
I don't know. I mean, it's this was even in the Kehoe books, which I've read a couple of his books from the 50s. There's no mention of the Roswell, and the Roswell. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Roswell got a huge amount of press, but it also had a huge amount of debunking press immediately after it happened.
Yeah, because it was a balloon, right? So it wasn't really aliens crashing into the.
Well, one of the things that I got from this reading Ruppelt's sort of report on UFOs is there were a lot of balloons back then.
Yeah. So and they were big. I mean, they were gigantic balloons.
Yeah, the Project Skyhook, and he says the Project Skyhook guys. He said they were the best, like UFO spotters.
Yeah.
He said something. If I can find it. I know I marked it.
Well, at the one where they have a scope that's a 25, whatever they call it, 25 magnification or whatever.
Yeah, to watch the
to watch the balloons, and they were talking about how they sent up they saw the UFO, so the guy went from the balloon to the UFO, and he's watching it. But it was kind of strange because he said the UFO, they gauged the thing at like 15,000 miles an hour or whatever, but then they also said they saw it 295,000 feet up, and I go,
they
can't see that.
There's a lot of crap involved in this. So I think that you're talking about, that was the incident that happened at the missile range.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an article that was in True magazine called "How Scientists Tracked a Flying Saucer" by Commander Robert B. McLaughlin, USN, and which is interesting with this article. I should say about the presence or absence of rank in an article at that time, and maybe moving into the future, into the 60s at least. I don't know what the policy is now. Ruppelt's book does not list his rank. He was a captain when he was in Project Bluebook, and I think they promoted him. He was activated from the reserves because of the Korean War, and he was assigned to ATIC, the what is that, Aerial Technical Information Center.
Yeah.
And the policy at the Pentagon is the Pentagon's like, you can, I think things have changed these days, but you can write a book, you can write an article, but if you want to have your rank on it, which adds a certain level of, I don't know, I can't think of the right word, not expertise, but makes it more presentable, more established. You know, it's like saying, "Oh, this was an article written by Professor so and so." It's equivalent to that. It's like, this is an article written by, he's a commander in the thing, or he's a captain or a major.
Right.
The Pentagon had to approve whatever you wrote. If they approved it, you could put your rank on it. If they didn't approve it, you could not put your rank on it. So Ruppelt's book, even though when it came out and when he wrote it, he was no longer active military. I don't know if he was still reserve. Did not put his rank on the article. And what's interesting is I have this True magazine thing on UFOs from 1966, which has an article by Ruppelt in it, and this is after he died, and it has his rank in it.
No.
So that actually suggests that the article, whoever put the article together, I don't know how a dead guy puts an article together.
It's hard to do.
And Yeah, some, maybe special. And then it also went through approval process at the Pentagon. And, or I don't know, maybe the rules are different. If you're dead, they can include your rank if you're dead. But
Yeah.
it doesn't say he's dead in this article, although I'll take a look at it again. So yeah, that was that scientist tracked flying saucer. That's a little the one of the things that comes out when you look at the stuff is if you look at something in the sky, you cannot, without a reference or a triangulation measurement, you can't tell how far away it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they did that with Arnold with the first sighting of the first flying saucers, and he said, "Oh, it was this far away, and they were moving this fast." And other people have come back and done measurements and said, no, it wasn't as far away as he thought he was, and it wasn't moving as fast as he was. So that's difficult. And this guy, I found a letter by this same McLaughlin who wrote this article about tracking flying saucers. And I'm not really sure it was him or he was writing about other people at White Sands that had seen this. But he wrote a letter to J.A. Van Allen, who's the guy that discovered the Van Allen belt, which is the radiation belt around the planet Earth.
Yep.
And the measurements that he gave in here, he said it was an altitude between 35, 40 miles, and the object 500 to 1,000 feet. And then the article had different measurements, which I don't have at the top of my head or the top of my fingers. So that even between when this article came out and when the letter he wrote to Dr. Van Allen, the distance measurements changed. So yeah, I mean, you got to take these size and distance things with a grain of salt. It's a big problem with sighting this stuff and sighting anything in the sky. And I actually did that's one of the things I'm going to try and do with my cell phone camera is if I can get a picture of a plane, approximately how big the plane is, and then you can calculate its size. So we'll see. I don't know. I haven't been able to get a picture of a plane yet.
They fly right over my house from the airport. I mean, they had one They had one the other day that was so loud we had to yell to communicate in the backyard. I'm like, what is this? And we're pretty far from the airport too. I'm like, why are we flying so low?
Is this which? It's a Air Force?
No, it was passenger jet, but it was it was for the airport from Sacramento, and I should have took a pic. Maybe I'll try it with my phone too. That's weird.
If you're out and a plane flies over, just take your phone out and take a picture. And look at the resolution.
And I can tell I have that aircraft tracking because I was like, how far up do planes fly? And they're like 30, 40,000. But I mean, this thing was obviously it's getting up to altitude from the airport, but it was pretty low and loud. So it's kind of weird. But it's important to note with the public's interest in UFOs is, I don't know if it's getting, I think it's getting more popular you're not nuts anymore if you believe in it. I mean, I don't want to say we believe it because I haven't seen one. So we're simply reporting and giving the history at this point of, what with Ruppelt's book, it's what we really know, what we know about UFOs and based on Ruppelt's reports. But it seems that the public's interest, I'll run our tiny podcast and I tell people about it, and nobody ever says, well, that's stupid. It's always like, oh, really? Well, let me give it a listen. And
I think I think there's a huge interest in this stuff, and the interest is we grew up in what was started to be the space age, and then our country walked away from it, and now we're slowly stepping back into it. But it seems to be mostly a commercial thing with like Musk and Blue Origin, and I think there's some other companies, but we might actually start doing serious space stuff again, but I think that will be due to the competition with Russia and China, because Russia and China are serious about this. China is, has sent a probe up to the southern pole of the moon to look for ice, and they sent back samples.
Oh wow.
And they now, they didn't send it. They're not sending it there just to like look around at the scenery. They're sending it there to as preliminary geological surveys. The same thing that they're doing on Mars right now. It's a preliminary geological survey for a manned mission and a base. And the Chinese think long term. So I don't know what their plans are, but they're probably going, okay, we're going to have a base on the moon within 10 years. It's going to be, we're going to put it where the water ice is. And in 20 years, we're going to have a scientific research base on Mars. And, and we've sat on our thumbs for 50 years and sort of dicked around with the space shuttle and pretending to have, more, bigger, better rockets for Moon and Mars. And those just seem to be big money sinks.
Well, we used the space shuttle to launch top secret and non-top secret satellites into Earth's orbit. But I agree with you. But what are we doing?
Yeah, it was stupid. Oh, one of the things that's interesting is that when I was reading, I don't know if I said this last time. Arecibo.
Yeah.
Where did I read that? The Arecibo Observatory was built originally with military money because they thought that they could track the ionization trail of satellites, of like the Soviet satellites. So it was originally built as a tool to track Soviet satellites. And when they built it and then they tested it and said, "Oh, it doesn't work. we can't track satellites with this thing. It just doesn't work. There is no ionization trail from satellites." And they gave it to the National Science Foundation, who never did any maintenance in 50 years, and it just collapsed like last year. So,
is this that? That's that giant one that's in South America,
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
Yeah, Puerto Rico, and it just collapsed. They go, well, we don't. Have you heard of rust? Have you heard of maintenance, material maintenance and inspection?
By the ocean.
No, we don't have money for that. We
only had money to sink millions into building the thing. We don't have anything for preventive maintenance.
No, nobody can have we can't put any oil on anything to protect it from rusting or paint.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
The 60 Minutes interview, I loved the fact that the two pilots came back and they just gave them a rash of shit for reporting it. Did you see that? They put on the movie channel on the movie channels. I don't know what they have on these aircraft carriers anymore. They have.
They made fun
TV.
of them. Yeah,
they
little
put
aliens and cartoons.
And they put Men in Black, and Independence Day, and signs on the TV. That's awesome.
Yeah, they were that's pilot stuff. They do that. I mean, I'm sure I think they believed them, and I don't know if anybody saw the gun. They probably didn't release that gun video right away. They just came back and said the story. Nobody actually saw. Holy shit! They really did. They really did. We're able to paint that target, and it's a Tic Tac UFO. Yeah. At that point, they were just talking about it.
Yeah, but they did. That was cool because those two pilots actually did see something. We don't know what they saw, and it's interesting. So
this is the episode where it's kind of like, when are we? If these things are real, they're going to be falling out of this. Eventually, one's going to. I mean, if they're so perfectly, maybe they just have, things inside them that don't allow them to crash into the earth. Well, if you don't count Roswell, which we still don't really know.
There are people that have. There's that guy. What's his name? Valley. And he supposedly has samples of spaceship rubble wreckage, and they did that in that documentary Phenomenon. They had him, and they was taking it to Gary Nolan's lab at Stanford to do an analysis. I don't know what's happened with that, which is interesting.
Well, this is the
So,
public Bob Lazar kind of, what is it made of?
yeah, well,
What,
but I've never seen any analysis of this stuff that says it's an unusual material or I'm not sure what you would see. You would probably see an you wouldn't see anything. You'd see an unusual sort of blend of materials to make a specific type of metal that might not be, we might not have discovered or made yet.
yeah.
So I'm not sure what you would discover from the Rebel. It's not going to be like that TV show Debris, where all the rubble has magical properties.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because what Lazar said, they didn't really I don't think they had landing gear. I think it was kind of like they were always just floating there. So they don't really
I don't
crash.
know.
I don't remember landing gear. We'd have to look at the model.
Yeah.
The $200 model. That's still
Are you buying one?
I was thinking about it. My wife said, "Yeah, just get it. If look good in the in the studio."
Well, you have to build it.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I've built a model or two in my time. I think I can get
have you built a model before?
Not lately.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Not lately. I mean, usually it was World War I aircraft was my favorite one. Remember, I used to always do those. But it's anyway. So Ruppelt. So it's kind of a chronological as we go through the book, and we're only going to get through probably not even half of it today. But I was kind of looking at it as in a chronological order. That's why we know where we are today, still nowhere. But I think it's important to note that he did a really good job, and I think it's honest and truthful as to this book.
Yeah, this is a really good, really clearly written. One of the fun things that I've had from looking at it is figuring out, since it's 70 years ago, if you can figure out some of the details that he didn't talk about in the book. Like, he talks about the Roberts report, and he describes the scientists, and he doesn't, but he can't tell you who they are. Now you can go and look and see who they were. And he really liked Dr. Hynek, and Hynek's, I think, the main reason that I've gotten interested in this, and that's because he's a well-respected scientist, and he was brought in as a critic, a solid critic, and then he did a flip at some point. And what I want to get to is eventually I want to read some of his books. I want to figure out why he did this flip. What changed his mind from it's just natural phenomenon, and his job was just to view it from the viewpoint of I think astronomical phenomenon. But
he was an astrophysicist, right?
Yeah, I think so. And so he did a 180 flip on this at some point. And my question, and he's not he's not a crazy person. So that's really what got me interested in this. And there's Ruppelt said about Dr. Hynek. He goes, he's one of the most impressive scientists I met while working on the UFO project, and I met a good many. He didn't do two things that some of them did: give you the answer before he knew the question, or immediately begin to expound on his accomplishments in the field of science. Modern scientists, from what I've seen at the many talks at the university, they don't talk about their accomplishments anymore. They just talk about how much grant money they have, which is really, it's really frustrating, because you sit down there and he goes, I raised $5 million. My lab is bringing in $2 million. And you're sitting there in the audience going, I don't care about the money. Tell me what interesting stuff you've done. And then you're bored for the next 50 minutes while he talks a bunch of shit. Yeah. And that's just me.
Well, it's all about the money. You, of all people, know it's all about how much money you bring in.
Oh yeah, no, it's and the ideas are secondary. The ideas, it's unfortunate that's the way the system has degraded to this point, but it's the ideas are secondary and the money is primary. And That's disturbing, which is one of the reasons that I don't think we're seeing a lot of interesting innovation, especially in like medical research.
Yeah.
Even other things. Like I said, um, what's come out of Silicon Valley lately that's interesting.
Yeah. Like you were saying. Yeah. We'll change the subject a little bit. There was the aircraft. Did you read about the aircraft that was found on the beach in the book? The uh, it was the flying flapjack. Do you remember that one? It's a twin prop. Looks like a pancake with no wings.
Yeah.
So somebody said we found UFOs are. It's important to know because it came out that UFOs are us. This thing that looks nothing like. Well, it looks a little bit like, I guess if you saw flying around, it might be, but it's important to note that it never flew. They found out I don't know how it probably fell off a carrier or crashed somewhere. It was kind of funny because some guys just walk along the beach and this thing's just laying there. And it did some hops, did some run ups and some hops on the runway, and then they finally destroyed it. But they said that it took a wrecking ball the thing was made so well. It took a wrecking ball to destroy the thing, and then they made two of them, two prototypes. One of them got moved to a museum.
That's why it couldn't fly. It's because it was
too heavy. Too heavy.
Yeah. You're supposed to make it out of light material.
Yeah, but it doesn't look cool.
So in the book too, there was some meeting, and this is I don't know what the meeting is. The new Project Grudge, where they're developing the new Project Bluebook under Ruppelt. And he's at a meeting in the Pentagon, and he says 2 weeks before Christmas in 1951, Colonel Dunn and I went to the Pentagon to give my report on setting up Project Bluebook. Before the meeting adjourned, Colonel Dunn had one last question. He knew the answer, but he wanted it confirmed. Does the United States have a secret weapon which is being reported as a UFO? The answer was a flat no. So that was a big question that a lot of people kept asking.
Yeah, is it us?
Yeah, and it was definitely not us. And yeah.
Is it really coming from, could it be coming from, the polar ice cap somewhere? Or remember I read the book called The Hollow Earth. I don't know if you
The Hollow Earth.
Yeah, they speculate, because, we, in some expedition that we went up there, they found warm water and plant life at one of the polar ice up near the pole, in the polar ice cap up near one of the poles, and there was speculation that it's hollow and large enough to get aircraft in there, and there's even speculation that the Nazis, because those guys, they tried to make a base up in the polar ice cap, and that's something we can explore at some point. Because they're like Indiana Jones, where they were not so much unlike that. The occult, they were interested in the occult. They were interested, they were innovative. You got to hand it to the Germans. They were innovative.
Oh yeah, their technology development was amazing.
So
they were, if they'd been patient, they would be ruling the world right now.
Yeah, but there's speculation that the UFOs are coming out of there, that the Germans knew something about it. They were able to get, and we know we can get submarines up in there in certain areas and you can even break through.
The Arctic or Antarctic? Arctic?
Yeah, I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, but the Hollow Earth stuff. I mean, I love the idea, and I love the Jules Verne Journey to the Center of the Earth. Remember that old movie?
I love that movie. I've seen it probably 100 times.
Oh, it's an awesome movie. But yeah, no, I don't believe that stuff. Do you know Project Grudge? They had a 600-page report come out afterwards.
What did they find?
Nothing. I mean,
somebody was paid to write that report.
Well, they had the report came out, and they're like, and the whole idea was it was going to shut down the whole UFO flap.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And the reporters got the report, and they kept flipping to the appendix, and they go. It says 23 of the reports are unknown. You can't explain what you saw with 23 of the reports. I go, so the reporter's just like, this is a load of crap.
Yeah.
You're telling us nothing's going on, but you can't tell us what's going on with 23% of the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what they boiled it down to. 23% of them we just don't know. We don't know. Just like we were discussing earlier, we can't put our hand on it. It hasn't been close enough to where we can get a good picture of it. Are we just hallucinating?
I don't know. The important thing to know about that 23%, there are reports, according to what Ruppelt was talking about with the way they do the analysis. I'm not sure they did that with Project Grudge, although that Lieutenant Cummings was in charge of it, and he seemed to have been pretty professional about it. He said, basically a report that would be marked as unknown was what would be considered a good report. So you had reliable witnesses, you had good information, a very solid report. It's not just like somebody calling up and saying, I just saw a UFO over my barn. It was, a good solid report. So this is suggesting that 23, this is why the reporters, I think, were so irritated, because these were considered good reports, and they're not, and it's a quarter of the total reports, and they're just going, there's nothing's happening here.
Well, there is. We don't know how to figure out what it is. I mean, we don't have the tech, I guess. With the technology we have these days, Bill, really we can't figure. Of course, they fly so fast. Where they talk about 15,000 miles an hour or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. A lot of these, apparently in this book too, Ruppelt was talking about when they'd actually do the radar tracks. This is in the 1950s. This isn't now. There's a couple things about radar that came out of this book, and one of them was when they were able to actually analyze the radar tracks, they would see upwards to 1,000 miles an hour. They weren't seeing these 15,000. With the ones you could actually get a track on and do a measurement on the speed, they were not seeing that. The speed measurements with the really high ones, he didn't consider those good tracks, and those were approximations, and he couldn't fully embrace them as a good measurement. And the ones that they could get good measurements were within a decent realm of possibility. There's an interesting thing I was talking about. They had that meeting at the Pentagon before they set up the new Project Bluebook from the old Project Grudge. And the guy that was running Project Grudge was a Lieutenant Cummings. And Ruppelt said from the meeting with Lieutenant Cummings at the end, which is summarizing and wrapping up Project Grudge, he goes, every word of the 2-hour meeting was recorded on a wire recorder. The recording was so hot that it was later destroyed, but not before I heard it several times. Lieutenant Cummings didn't disappoint. He later told me that all of the generals and about 3/4 of the full colonels present at the meeting had turned a shade of purple normally associated with rage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So Cummings basically, towards the end of the 2-hour conference, the general asked Lieutenant Cummings to review the activity of the UFO investigation for the past year and a half. Cummings proceeded to elaborate on the details, the attitude at ATIC, the opposition to his reorganizing the project, and the methods of processing reports, which basically he said, it was crap, which is why they got upset. But they did, the results of this was, and press, I guess, pressure from the public, was a reorganization and an expansion of Project Bluebook under Ruppelt. But apparently Project Grudge, 600 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can find that online. I looked at it. I'm not sure I'm going to read it. I don't know if I want to wait. I have other lots of 600 pages
Yeah,
of
but
crap to wade through.
I know, but it doesn't say anything. Really, it
Well,
just
I think
debunks. Grudge
the
is the
part,
one where it just says, we're saying
yeah,
this doesn't happen.
yeah, they were just saying, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I
The
wouldn't
Grudge,
bother. I'm not reading it.
Grudge
Yeah,
was designed to, I think, disprove it and get the press and the public off their backs,
yeah,
and it didn't work. It had just the opposite effect.
yeah. More and more people. All it did was make more and more people interested and looking up. And I just don't think in way back when people didn't even look to the sky as now. You kind of like you'll sit in the backyard and you'll look up and you'll go, yeah, I really wish one would fly over so I can actually see it.
Oh, one of the things that I've gotten out of reading this stuff is that the planes fly a lot higher now because we're pressurized jet engines and pressurized cabins.
Yeah.
Reading some of these description of these flights in this book and stuff, they're flying at 5,000 or 10,000 feet because 15,000 is the altitude maximum for
Oxygen.
before you pass out.
Yeah.
And apparently, many people will pass out way before that. So for a aircraft without oxygen, or a commercial plane at the time, was 5,000 or 10,000 feet. So I thought that was interesting. That all these people, all these flights and planes, most of the sightings were from planes. We're seeing UFOs in that area in the 5,000 to 10,000 feet. Now we're at I don't know what the commercial
30,000,
30,000.
I have Flight Tracker, a program, and you can look to see what's flying. They don't want to do military. That's what pisses me off. But you can look and there's a little airplane flying along. It's really cool. And you just tap on the aircraft. It'll show you what it is, how fast it's going, where it's going, what its origin was, and its altitude. So it gives a lot of detail from the transponder direct to your tablet or laptop. And it's so that's what I said. I go, well, what is the altitude? So I had it depends. The highest one I saw was I think 39,000. But it's
so that
but yeah, that's high.
It's a huge difference from the 1950s and now. I found a picture of the Bob Lazar Area 51 UFO, and you can pick one up for $662.54.
That's a bargain. I wonder if I order on
at
Amazon,
half the price.
I wonder if I can order it through Amazon and save $50 if I get a gift card or a credit card.
Yeah, I'm only seeing this one. It looks like it just sits on the ground.
Yeah, there's no landing gear.
Oh,
no landing gear.
I'll do another search. Oh, we started to talk about the Skyhook guys and
the balloon guys.
Big Skyhook guys. Yeah, and Project Skyhook, they would send up these instrument packages to measure cosmic rays for some reason. I don't know what the purpose of the project was, and it was run by General Mills.
Yeah,
your favorite cereal company.
Yeah, I noticed that. I said, "Is that the same people that make the cereal?"
Yeah.
They moved on. Well, nobody's interested in these balloons anymore. Let's make cereal.
Yes, let's do cereal. Yeah, it's I'm not seeing any of these models. That's weird.
Yeah, I saw for a couple $100 and things. I don't know. I'm not ready to. I could probably just get a picture of it, call it good, because there's pictures online of it. It's got a cutaway. I think it's got a cutaway of the interior of it and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I was seeing them. They weren't too bad. I was looking about a month ago. They weren't too bad.
I think it got worse. It was 200. It was 200. I think when I saw. What is it now? 600.
Yeah, someone's asking that, but I saw them. I think I saw them for less than $100, which I was like, it's not too bad. It's still crazy, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, they're testers too. The shittiest models you can get.
Well,
like I said, I was in the grocery store and it was like if they were out of all the other Revell and all the other ones. And my dad pick a model, because you can take it home and you won't bother me while I'm drinking beer and watching TV. So, it's like, I got to get this tester's model. God, so shitty. But
it's just better than nothing. Beggars can't be choosers.
I'm not going to say no.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Your sound faded for a minute. Say something.
Here.
Yeah, your sound's gotten funky for some reason.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. This is going to take probably 3 episodes. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's good. Anyway, the skyhook people. Let's just finish with this thought. What made these people so sure that UFOs existed? In the first place, they had seen many of them. One man told me one tracking crew had seen so many that the sight of a UFO no longer even especially interested them.
Oh my God!
You can't get any better than that. So I was thinking about this skyhook balloons. They look like big flying saucers. So maybe the flying saucers were just attracted to them. So it was like a duck decoy for flying saucers.
They thought, there's another flying saucer. What's that?
Yeah. What's that? Let's check it out. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, no, there are no Bob Lazar UFO. There's one. Wow. I guess I think all this UFO stuff is impacted. Yeah.
Mania.
Yeah, it's cool. It's good.
All right, Bill, thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome your questions or comments to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook at the Alien Probe Podcast, our website, alienprobe.net, Twitter and Instagram at Alien Probe Pod. Find us on all Spotify, Apple, Google, and all podcast platforms. Thanks to our senior producer, Robert Anthony. Until next time, thanks, Bill.
Bye.